Do you guys know how playoff bonus shares work? How are players paid for the playoffs in Major League Baseball? Welcome to MS Paint. We're going to have some fun here. So here's how playoff bonuses work. Question mark. So, okay, here's all the revenue from the playoffs, right? This is all the games. This is TV. This is merchandise. This is gate. This is gate, aka ticket sales, whatever. Okay. This then is broken down into two buckets. Okay. We have boop, boop. Look at me. Look at my skills, chat.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
This is players, and this is owners. Okay, teams. What we're going to focus on is the players pool and how this is breaking down. So basically you take all the revenue, then there is an agreement within the CBA that part of it goes to the players, part of it goes to the owners. It's just revenue sharing straight up, okay? What the players get is 60% of all gate/tickets for the guaranteed games in a series. So what that means, in the best of 3, there's going to be 2 games no matter what. So whatever a sweep would be, you get 60% of those games. The rest of the money, TV, advertising, rest of the ticket revenue, all that kind of stuff goes to the teams. All of the rest of it does. All of it. So is it a wonder that every single CBA negotiation, the owners are pushing for more playoff teams and more playoff games? No, because they take, I think at the end of the day, it's like they take 80% of the total money. So if a game goes 7 games, the players get 60% of the ticket revenue for the first 4, and then the last 3, 100% goes to the owners. It's just profit. Yes. You know those same teams that say, we're poor, we're not making any money. They're lying. They all make money. Okay, this creates the shares pool. Okay, now you guys have heard the term playoff shares. There are no salaries. Players do not make any money from their salaries in the playoffs. That stops on the last day of the season. There's no additional money to be made. Their contract, there's nothing extra unless there's something written in. The team makes the playoffs, you make this bonus or whatever, but that's in the lump sum. That's later anyway. So you're not making your paycheck. That playoff share goes into a big pool of money that is split among all of the teams. So this is split, right? Every team that makes the playoffs. Okay? That amount of money is totaled at the end of the playoffs and is split evenly amongst the teams, and then the teams get breakdowns based on how far into the playoffs they got. So you lose in the wild card is the lowest amount of money. You win the World Series is the highest amount of money. Those pools are divided into things called shares. So if your team decides to do 75 shares, 80 shares, because there's a lot of people around the team, you want to give full shares everywhere, that's going to lower the price of one share. Then there's teams that do 40 shares. Everyone who gets a full share is going to get more money, more of the money. So you can see how there would be an issue here. How are these things decided? Well, the players gather in a conference room and they talk about it. They sit and they talk about it. And it's basically led by your most senior player. Here's a good one. Let's just talk about the Mets in 2022. We had Max Scherzer and Francisco Lindor. They're kind of our de facto pitching and position player kind of leaders. And also, they're both on the subcommittee with the Players Association, so they had a really good idea how this whole thing works. So, for the most part, especially guys that aren't like tenured or big leaguers or free agents, they kind of just sit in there and they vote along with their veterans. So, like, the people who are talking, it's mostly five people of like 25 guys in there. And you get a list of people that are eligible for playoff shares. So any GMs, your president of baseball operations, anyone who's in the front office or considered a front office employee, they're exempt from this. They cannot be given a share because they have their own bonus system in the front office. This list includes, but is not limited to, roving instructors, guys that show up for a week, come up, work through catching or whatever, go back down. Players that like had a cup of coffee, came up for a week or two, or a month or something, or had to fill in for a while, or got called. Like we had Terrence Gore. Right, in 22, he'd only been up for a week or 2. So like you got to factor in, like that's not a full share probably, but it's a percentage. Then you have like the grounds crew, the bat boys, the security guards. They can be ballpark workers. You can do ushers. You can do the cleaning staff, the bus drivers, the pilots, the flight attendants, the kitchen staff, the clubhouse staff, the training staff, the part-time staff. That's like massage therapists, people that don't travel to stay with the team. They're only with you half the time. Things like that. There's a lot of personnel around. The traveling secretary, like all of the logistics people, all of these people you create relationships with over time, and you have to decide who they are. So there's a lot of like names being thrown out where guys haven't even met that person. They're like, I don't know who that is. Here's how it works. You go, okay, this is how we break it down. This is how the conversation goes. If you get a full year of service time, basically, if you're up for 172 days and you're on this team, if you're a rookie or if you're a veteran, it was on the team that you're in, you get a full share no matter what. No matter what you did. You could have been the utility guy that played in like 15 games who was there all year. You could be the backup. You could be Drew Butera and never catch behind Salvi, ever. You're getting a full share because you were there and you did all the work. All the coaches get full shares that were there all year. So your manager, all your assistant coaches, your hitting coaches, your pitching coaches, your bullpen catchers get full shares as well. And then you go to the clubhouse staff, who's also with you all the time. So your head guy gets a full share because he's leading the team. Your assistant guy usually gets a full share as well because he travels. And then you have your assistant guys and you start how to break it down from there. So if you don't want to give a full share, what do? There's a few options. One, you can break it down into fractions. So if a guy gets traded to you, like at the trade deadline, and it's just kind of hanging out in there and maybe gets hurt and doesn't play very much, they get half a share because they're there for half the time. Most of the time, those guys get full shares because they're big integral parts of the team. But if a guy's there for half the year, you give him half share, you try to go that way. If it's less than that, if a player's been there for like 2 weeks, you can do prorated. Whatever percentage of a full year, that's what they get of a full share. You can divide shares. So you can say this group of people gets 2 total shares, and I'm going to let the guy who runs that group of people decide who gets what. For example, grounds crew, and we'll put it on you to do because we don't see what they're doing. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what the dynamic is. We don't know who's doing what or whatever. That's their job. And we're so far removed that we can't make an accurate decision. So we just let them do it. That's really common as well. The thing that's most common too for the ushers, for security guards and things, you can do lump sum. So you can say, we want to give all of the parking lot attendants, the bus drivers and everyone, they all get $500 each. It's like hey, you deserve a little bit of this because part of this was you, even if you're kind of away, like you never actually get to watch the games because you're just guarding the parking lot. You still deserve some money from us doing well, even if it's not a ton. You do lump sums for people that aren't expecting to get any money, which I love. I think it's a great idea. So you can do that. We did that with the Mets. All right. So you can imagine if you're like, okay, we're giving out 40 full shares to the players and people who played and whatever. And then we have these other 20 shares that are being divided across everybody. And then lump sums kind of come out to another share. So like, you're like, okay, total, we have 61 shares to divide. We have our lump money. So if you divide the full amount of money that your team's going to get divided by the number of full shares, that's how much money each share is worth. So here's a prime example. Here's 2019. I'll tell you about it. All right, 2019 players pool amounted to $80,861,000, so on and so forth. World Series champion Nationals received $29,100,000 of that grand total, and then the American League champion got $19 million. They lost the World Series. The Nationals awarded 61 full shares. That's pretty middle of the road, slightly, maybe even slightly above normal, which amounted to $380,000 per full share. So imagine if you give a bat boy a full share, that is life-changing money. So that's a conversation to be had. It has been had. I heard it. And the Astros gave less shares. Surprise. I'm just kidding. So they got $250,000 each, right? These are for the teams that went to the World Series and lost the World Series and won the World Series. So the winner got $380. The loser got $256. I believe the biggest one, I think the Astros got like $428 or something in the last one, which is crazy, right? That's awesome. But you got to remember, even at that amount of money, like Max Scherzer, it makes way more money in the regular season. Even if he wins the World Series, that money is still not something that's like moving the needle for him, which is awful, like horrible to think about, but like it's not. So this is why the owners wanted more games, is because more games mean more gate, which means they take home more money, and the players still take home the same amount of money or a little bit more, and the owners get way more, which is why they push for it so hard in the CBA. Does that make sense now? The revenue in the playoffs for them is incredible. It's incredible. So like, look, if the players pool amounted to $80 million, how much do you think total was made? Probably around $250 million. Just in the playoffs, $250 million. Just in the playoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
That's crazy. That's a lot of money. It scales though, like I said. So if you lose in the wild card, I believe in 2022 when we lost in the wild card and the way ours was divided, I think I got a check for like $9,000. I think in the DS in 19 when we lost that year, I got like 16 grand. So let me take you into the room for the second part of this little discussion. Basically, everyone goes in, you just take a seat around a conference table, and whoever your player rep is for the Players Association, because they're the one that turns in the paperwork, they have a piece of paper, they have a pen, and they just go down the list, say names, guys explain. If some people haven't been there or haven't met that person, then we explain who they are, and someone throws something out. So Here's what happened in like 2015. We had Torrey Hunter and then we had Blaine Boyer. Blaine Boyer wanted to give every single person on the list a full share. Okay, that would have taken us to like 130 full shares. 2015, by the way, we didn't make the playoffs. We were close though. We were right there at the end for the wild card. So we had the meeting and Torrey ran it. And I remember Torrey Hunter being like, whoa, 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 whoa. And even Joe Mauer was like, that's a lot, right? That's unprecedented. That's double. And he's like, well, we could change the Bat Boys' lives. And what Torrey said, he's like, well, that would change their lives if there were 60 total shares. But if there's 130, then it won't change anyone's lives anymore. That'll more than cut a full share in half. So like by giving out that many, the people who do get them then don't have the life-changing money anymore. So we had to find a balance. And it was a really interesting conversation. It was my first one. So I was just like, who do I go? Like, obviously Torrey won at the end of the day. Won in a way, like, we're not just going to give everyone a full share, but we will give more people shares. And we give out a lot. We were going to give out a ton. Just not 100, I think it was like 138 or something. Which now it would be like 160 because there's like, so many employees. There's always this like, hey, let's be really generous. And then someone else who's like, but remember, like, this could also change some of the young guys' lives in here as well. Like, because at the end of the day, there is more value to playing, being on the field. It's always a push and pull between like wanting to be greedy and generous. But I've been fortunate that every team that I've been on that's done this, 19 Twins and the 22 Mets, did a great job. I was really proud that I was in that room. It's just young guys. And then basically rookies, guys that don't have a full year of service time, they don't get to be in there, which I love. So that is how playoff shares works. And that's how it's decided upon. It's a meeting that happens. A lot of times it's done on the plane. I believe this came up because Mania was talking about how they did it on the plane because like they just made the playoffs and they had to go play in the playoffs the next day and they had to figure it out. They didn't have their meeting beforehand because they didn't know if they were going to make it, whatever. So they just all got on the plane and did it, which I think is like hilarious because so many of the people they had to just like be like, you guys go 10 seats down there so you can't hear us. And then they just did it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of players making the decisions who's going to make thousands and thousands of dollars. But at the end of the day, the playoffs are like about the experience. And I think it's the most visceral, like you're playing for fun. It's close to playing for fun as you can when you're a professional. But, having a little bonus is nice. It can change the lives, especially of rookies. But for the most part, you try to take care of all the people that work in your orbit, especially the people you work with directly. The chefs need full shares. The clubhouse people need full shares. The Bat Boys you see every day need full shares or at least high shares. The grounds crew people need full shares. The trainers need full shares. All these people who are there, their first one's there, the last one's to leave. It's a great way to really give them some respect and acknowledgement for their work. So that's how it works.